facilitator and its national chairman. Also, I would like to mention the president of the National Youth Movement of the National Democratic Working Group, President Comfort Mpov in absentia, and other members of the National Working Group Youth Movement. So today we are here to give our praise up about on the condemnation of Garwe's ultimatum which he gave the vendors, the 48-hour ultimatum which he gave vendors to vacate the streets in all towns and cities. So now I'm handing over to Mr. Chinama, who is the main presenter of our presser. Before we start, I would like to say that we will ask for questions. We will take questions from you after he presents, and after we take questions, we are just taking for 3 questions, a set of 3 questions, and then after that we will reply to those questions, and then we will go into another segment. That way, over to you, Mr. Chinama.
Thank you very much, the Secretary General. Good afternoon to all the members of the press who are physically present here and those who are watching us virtually wherever they might be in the whole country and abroad. As the Secretary General has alluded to earlier on, we are here to express what we think concerning the ultimatum which Garwe gave to the vendors, and we have titled our presser, National Democratic Working Group Youth Movement condemns Garwe's ultimatum. Fellow Zimbabweans, we, the National Democratic Working Group Youth Movement, strongly condemn Daniel Garwe's heartless ultimatum, ordering city councils to evict all street vendors. This move is a blatant attack on the livelihoods of countless families who rely on vending to survive. The harsh reality is that vending is not a choice, but a necessity for many Zimbabweans. It's a matter of life and death, as people are forced to take to the streets to make ends meet. Without vending, our economy would come to stand still, leaving many families without a lifeline. The ZANU-PF government's gross incompetence and misgovernance have ravaged our economy, leaving many Zimbabweans struggling to survive. Instead of addressing the root causes of poverty and economic instability, the government is waging a war on the most vulnerable members of our society. We warn Garwe and the government that the vendors will not be silenced or intimidated. They will defend their livelihoods against a deceitful government that prioritizes corruption and self-interest over the welfare of its citizens. We are making the following demands. We demand that the government reverse its stance by immediately withdrawing the ultimatum and engage in meaningful dialogue with street vendors and other stakeholders. We also demand that the government addresses the root causes by implementing a comprehensive solution that tackles the root causes of poverty and economic instability. We also demand that the government should uphold human rights by recognizing and respecting the rights of all citizens, including street vendors, to a dignified life and livelihood. Furthermore, we call upon the government to provide alternative livelihoods and economic opportunities for vendors and other marginalized communities. We also demand them to invest in infrastructure and services that supports the growth of small businesses and informal trade. We demand them to ensure that law enforcement agencies respect the rights of vendors and do not harass or intimidate them, as we have seen already in Mutare and Masvingo. The vendors have already started to reject whatever the government is planning to do with their livelihoods. It's appalling that while the poorest Zimbabweans are being tortured and oppressed, the real corrupt individuals are left to flaunt their ill-gotten gains and wealth. This disregard for justice and equality is unacceptable. As the National Democratic Working Group Youth Movement, we have been left with no choice but to be the voice and cry of the oppressed masses of our beloved nation. Our cries knows no boundaries. It transcends race, gender, creed, political affiliation, and economic status. We stand in solidarity with all Zimbabweans who are suffering under the weight of misgovernance and economic hardship. The time for empty promises and deceitful tactics is over. We, the people of Zimbabwe, we will no longer be silenced or oppressed. We will rise up and demand justice, equality, and freedom. We urge all progressive forces, civic organizations, and concerned citizens to join us in condemning Garwe's ultimatum and demanding a better future for all Zimbabweans. Together we can build a Zimbabwe that is just, equitable, and prosperous for all. We face the bull and hold it by its horns without any iota of fear. We cannot afford to shut our mouths when our very existence is under threat of extinction. As youths, we are solidly behind street vendors to address critical issues of butter and bread. In our country, the only employment sector left in the country is vending. Join us in this fight for a better Zimbabwe. Some may rhetorically ask, who are we? The National Democratic Working Group is a consultative convergence of democratic forces seeking to free masses by advancing social justice. We are committed to build a solid base for our people to discuss their aspirations and find the best way forward. Thank you, Zimbabwe. Tatenda siyabonga.